So, ready to make a difference? Building a better planet starts with you.
Aqua Kids, traveling around the world, going where we've never been before, having fun and so much more, learning from our friends of the sea, saving them is up to you and me. Aqua Kids.
Welcome to today's show. We're here at the Patuxent Aquatic Environmental Research Laboratory, commonly referred to as the Pearl, which provides the community with the knowledge to solve environmental challenges. Now let's go check this out. I was told Dr. Clark is down here at the dock, so we need to find him so we can find out more about the Pearl. Dr. Clark!
Hey, what's up, Jeremiah?
How are you?
What you doing down here?
Nothing much. It's good to see you.
You too, man.
So, could you tell us a little bit more about the Pearl?
Well, the Pearl is Morgan State University's Patuxent Environmental and Aquatic Research Laboratory. What we do here is we try to challenge or solve the challenges of the environment now so that when you're my age, you don't have to worry about them.
Okay. So what work have y'all done so far?
Well, let me tell you a couple of things that, especially like you're going to be doing today. We do a lot of long-term studies that tell you, so you can say, if we're going to fix the environment, we have to know how it was, and when we make changes, did we actually fix it? For that, you need a lot of data. So we do a lot of long-term studies, especially with our blue crabs. And we do a lot of studies that we actually give back to the government so they can say, I don't know if for people in the Chesapeake, there's a report card that comes out every year. Say, what's the health of the bay? And we provide some of the data so you can say, what's the health of the bay? And I always tell people, if you want to know how the bay is, come and ask Morgan.
So is the bay healthy?
So here's the answer to that. You don't ask the bay if it's healthy. That's like saying, did you get a good grade on your report card? Now,
Okay.
right? Now, and if
Yes.
you get a good grade, then that's your fault. So you say, is the bay healthy? Does it get a good grade on a report card? It's not the bay's fault. It's not whether or not the bay is healthy. It's how are we around the bay doing?
Okay.
That's
so,
what we should be asking.
So are we healthy, the people around the bay?
We could be doing better.
Okay.
We could be doing better. We could be putting less nutrients in the bay. We could be taking care of the bay, less sediments. That way the bay, when we go to it, when we say it's healthy, it'll have a big smile on its face.
So what are some things that people at home can do to help the watershed?
Actually, it's a pretty good question. It really depends on where you live in the watershed. So if you're in a more rural agricultural place, it's more about what farmers can do. If you live in a city, then it's more things like what can you do to keep the sediment and stormwater from going into the bay. If you live in more suburban places, there are issues of your septic tanks or perhaps your wastewater systems. It really depends on where you live, and how you can find those out is most often there's some sort of watershed organization where you live. Find out the name of that organization and they can help you move through those questions.
So now we talked about what people at home can do, but what do you guys actually do here at the Pearl? And by the way, you know my last name is Pearl?
Pearl
Yeah.
in the house.
Ooh.
Are we going to do the Pearl dance now? Because we're going to make that official dance? I don't know. We could.
Okay, that's enough. Now what do you guys do here at the Pearl?
So we do a combination of long-term monitoring studies like the blue crab study. We do natural resource economics, which is looking at both the economy and the environment. A lot of people don't think that these two are compatible, but we look at how can these two work together and how can they coexist, because they're required, they're necessary for each other. We also do oyster aquaculture, where we have a oyster aquaculture program and a hatchery where we don't grow oysters here. What we do is we grow oyster businesses, and we grow the oyster industry. And the last thing I think we would cover was environmental education.
And I'm proud of Morgan for having this place up here. And I think more people, especially in Maryland, need to know about this place to come up and help out any way possible.
It is the jewel in Morgan's crown.
Yes, I really do think it is. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Hey, I think we should do that dance again. So I'm going to actually teach you how to do it.
Thank you.
So just lean, lean, lean.
Oh, yeah, I think, no, just calm down.
Then you walk off, then you walk off, then you walk off, and we'll be right back, Dad.
For more information on today's show, go to aquakidstv.org. Welcome back to Aqua Kids.
After a short ride out to the river, it was time to get the crab survey started. I'm here now with Adam from the Pearl. Adam, can you explain to me what this crab survey is all about?
Yeah, so this is our long-term monitoring survey, and we have pots here in the Patuxent River and also the Chesapeake Bay, and we pull them up throughout the course of the season and measure our crabs. We get the width and the weight, and we just get an idea of what the population is doing this year.
Why is it important for you to get all this information about the crabs?
So we've been doing this survey since 1968, and with ecological populations, it's really important to have a long-term data set so that we can see the trends in the population over time.
Why is it important to get all the information on the crabs?
So over the course of our survey in the 45 years or so, we've seen a decrease in the size of crabs that we're catching, so the crabs are overall smaller, and there's fewer male crabs that are being caught, which are the really important part of the fishery for Maryland, is those big male crabs. That's what you're going to go get at a crab house.
Do you know the reason for the population decrease?
There could be a number of reasons. The population will naturally go up and down every couple of years or so. And we're just a monitoring project, this survey, so we haven't looked into necessarily the reasons. It could be with regulation or changing temperature or conditions in the bay. So,
Where's this data used?
well, it's been used by the government in Maryland, the state government, to set regulations for the crab fishery, and we've also been using it recently to develop online tools so that the public can go and look at all this information online and kind of learn about crabs and the state of crabs in the Chesapeake Bay on their own.
All right, I'm getting excited. So can we go catch some crabs now?
Yeah, let's get going.
All right, let's go. I got to get these gloves on. I think they fit, barely.
Okay, so we're gonna come up to the pot here, and you're gonna hook the line and bring it up to the pulley. We can pull the pot up, and then we're gonna empty the crabs out into the table here.
All
You ready?
right, yep. Let's see. Oh, geez. Let's see if I catch it. Ah.
Take that hook from you.
Yeah, there we go.
Reverse a little bit. Put that around the pulley. Go
Like
ahead,
that?
haul on that line.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh! Look at
We
that!
got some crabs. Okay, let's get this in here.
Oh my gosh, look at this. I
Looks like-
honestly, I didn't think we were going to catch any, but
Looks like we got 4. So go ahead and grab the pot here and shake those out into the table. Then we can count them, measure them.
all right, what are we doing now?
We're gonna go grab our other crab pot.
Okay.
Can't just have a survey with one pot.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. Nope.
You got it.
All right, let's see what's in here. Oh my gosh. Woo! Look at that. Mm-hmm. Look
more.
at that.
All right, hold on to that. Let's unhook here. All right, go ahead and shake those out. We got some big ones.
All right, so what are we about to do with these crabs, Adam?
All right, so we've got our catch for today, and we're gonna sort them, males and females, and measure them so we get our data for our survey.
All right, yeah, that one.
Grab the
That
first one
works.
here. Okay, so looking at the underside of the crab, we can see that this is a male because this abdomen looks like the Washington Monument.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll measure him now. He's a big guy. From spine to spine, it's like 6 inches. That's a big crab. So he'll go in our bucket there of males.
What do we have next?
Well, let's look at a female crab. See one here. So looking at the underside of this crab, you can see it looks like the Capitol Dome, right?
Yes.
So this is a female crab. We'll get her width spine to spine. She's a little smaller, 5 7/8 in our bucket of females.
All right,
So spine to spine,
that's about 7.
7 inches.
7
wow.
inches, wow.
Okay, put them in the bucket with the other male crab.
All right.
That far one. Awesome.
Yeah,
We're well on our way to doing the survey.
I won that fight, I think. What do we have to do next?
Well, now that we've measured all these crabs, we're gonna sort them male and female, and then weigh them all together.
Male.
There's a male crab.
What's the purpose of weighing them?
So we weigh them so that we can get a ratio of the width to weight for these crabs. Okay, so we'll weigh our males first. Looks Looks like about 2.8 kilograms. Females.
The females.
1.2. We'll make sure we subtract the weight of the buckets, so that's a kilogram.
Okay. Adam, what is this? What do we have here?
So this is a YSI, and this will take water quality measurements for us, stuff like the salinity and the temperature and how much oxygen is in the water. So it's kind of like doing a checkup for the bay, and anyone who goes and collects out in the field doing crabs or anything else, most of the time the scientists are going to take water quality.
Okay. So how do we use this?
Okay, so just put the sensor into the water right below the surface there,
Okay.
and then I'll be able to read the measurements off of the screen. So it looks like the salinity is about 13.5 parts per thousand. It's pretty normal. Temperature is 31 degrees Celsius, and we have 7.52 milligrams per liter of oxygen. So that's a good amount of oxygen in the water right here.
So what does all this information tell us?
Well, this just gives us a general idea of how the water is doing, and if there's anything that seems really abnormal, then maybe we look at our data and how many crabs or the size of the crabs, and there could be some correlation between the water quality parameters and what we're pulling up in our pots.
Okay. So far, have the numbers here had an impact on what you've been catching?
Well, so far everything is pretty normal usually. Sometimes we get low oxygen content in the water. Usually below 4 milligrams per liter is when aquatic organisms start to get stressed and they'll try and leave the area. So if we have pots that are sitting in 3.5 or 3 milligrams per liter, we usually don't see crabs in there.
In this area? They just go somewhere else?
They'll go somewhere else, yeah, with more oxygen.
Okay. Adam, what do we have to do with all these crabs?
Well, now that we have the data we need, we can release them back into the river.
Okay. Bye, buddies. Thank you, Adam, for letting me come out and help you with this crab survey. That was actually my first time crabbing, so now we have a memory together. Thank you.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you were able to be a part of this historic project.
I really appreciate it. It was fun. And we'll be right back.
Want to keep up with our adventures? Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Welcome back to Aqua Kids.
We're now at the Pearl's oyster hatchery, and we're going to see what they have cooking. Hey ladies, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So what exactly are we doing?
Well, we're not cooking anything, but we are making oyster babies.
Oyster babies?
Yes, oyster babies.
Explain to me how you're going to be making oyster babies, please.
So we start with what's called broodstock, which is the group of oysters we use to get the gametes from to make the oyster babies. So what you're looking at here is wild broodstock right out of the Patuxent River.
Okay.
So when they come in, they're pretty nasty. They're covered in mud, and you can see that they create habitat for other creatures like mussels. There's a barnacle on here, and there's also mud crabs that come in on these, as well as some certain species of fish. So we clean them up, and once they're all clean, we can shuck them, which means to open them and see whether they're male or female. Because just from looking at this oyster, you cannot tell whether it's a girl or a boy. The only way you can tell what an oyster is by shucking it and looking at its gametes or watching it spawn naturally. In a few minutes, we'll have you open an oyster, but right now we're going to have Rebecca talk about our specialized broodstock.
Okay.
So the oyster aquaculture industry really likes to have diverse groups of parents. So those are wild, and then there's triploid oysters. So much like bananas or watermelons, or a seedless watermelon is triploid. A triploid oyster will put all of its energy into growing rather than reproduction.
Could you try to explain that just a little bit better for us?
You and I and normal oysters have 2 chromosomes, and these will have 3, so that they can't reproduce. But they'll grow larger.
So tell me, what do you guys actually do here?
We produce oysters right now for research, and all of our research efforts are to help support the industry so that they can grow their own.
All right, so what are we doing now?
We're going to demonstrate a strip spawn. So oysters can spawn naturally when we manipulate the temperature and the salinity to make the conditions prime for them to spawn on their own. Mm-hmm. But when we strip spawn, we have a lot more control over when the eggs and sperm come in contact with one another, which is really important when we're making triploid oysters. So I'm gonna teach you how to shuck an oyster. Have you ever shucked an oyster before?
I have not.
All right. So, another quick fun fact is that when we strip spawn, we want to make sure we have enough males and females. And oysters can change from boy to girl or girl to boy. So what we normally try to go for is the smaller oysters typically tend to be males. So, and we think the reasoning for that is because the gametes are easier to develop than an egg is. An egg takes a lot of energy to make. So grab your oyster knife, and we'll grab your oyster with your protected hand.
Okay.
So, I grew up learning how to shuck the oyster from the bill, which is how a lot of people from the Chesapeake do. But after shucking oysters so much, I typically go from the hinge.
Okay.
So hold your oyster in this direction so the hinge is facing you.
Yep.
And you take the knife and put it in between the two valves. Yep.
Okay.
And sometimes it takes some wiggling, but you want to puncture there's a little piece of tissue there, and you can twist the knife like this.
I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm trying to get it. Hold on, I got it. There we go.
Beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip the gametes out, whether they're eggs or sperm. So the first step is pulling back this bit of skin, if you will. This oyster isn't super ripe. So normally they'd be really fat and creamy looking, but all the gonad lives here and around the stomach. So it's on the front and the back of the oyster. And to test for gametes, we just nick this area here and put it on a slide. All right, let's see what we have here. All right, and this one's a girl.
Yay! Okay, Amber, can we go over what we just learned?
Sure. So we start with our broodstock, and then we spawn them either by strip spawning or natural spawning. The fertilized eggs go into tanks where they live for about 2 weeks to become larvae that are ready to set. We then set them and they become baby oysters.
Look at that.
So here we have a few-month-old oyster seed.
Wow. Thank you, Amber and Jamie, for the tour of this oyster hatchery. I really appreciate it. No, today I did a lot of things I've never done before. Shucking an oyster and catching crabs. So, thank you.
It was
I
great
appreciate
having
it.
you.
No problem. Aqua Kids will be right back.
Hi, Drew here. You know, it excites me to meet kids like us who love to protect the earth as much as we do. Young people who are pioneering powerful ways to conserve and protect our planet. I call them eco-defenders. Let's find out what they're doing.
To me, sustainability means living in a way that acknowledges that we're a part of the earth and not separate from it, and so that how we treat our ecosystem is also reflective of how we treat ourselves and one another. I didn't have a lot of power, but I was like, I can build a garden, and then we can sort of offset the carbon footprint of some of where we get our food. And I think that moment when I could look at something tangible that I'd produced, that sort of triggered in me this realization that there's a lot of sustainable work that's so simple and easy to do. And so I think it's important to start to show people so that they can see that sustainability can have many expressions and many manifestations. I saw just a need for more outlets for people to connect to the environment and more creative outlets in a way that I hoped would appeal to people who didn't just identify as members of the environmental community at Wesleyan. I started to think about how there's something about holding a beautiful tactile magazine and how wonderful it was to have a tangible expression. And so I figured loam would be a good way to kind of show all this great stuff that was going on, but have to do with a much more nuanced vision of how to live a sustainable lifestyle. And we were able to connect with so many people through it. And I wanted to create Wild Walls to kind of work in tandem with that so people could read about these activist ideas and green philosophies that were being circulated on our campus in Loam, and then be able to put that into practice with participating in the creation and maintenance of Wild Walls. The first wall we built was just made out of pallets, and they were succulents, and that was our pilot garden. And the cool thing was that once we built our first wild wall, we started to notice that people were building their own little vertical gardens in their backyard.
Sometimes I'll be walking and then all of a sudden I'll see a vertical garden come out of nowhere and I'm like, Kate, totally did that or made that happen. I never would have thought to see or view my life in a way where I could like take more steps towards becoming like a sustainable person. But like Kate's ideas that sort of just seem to like pop up around Wesleyan are friendly little reminders.
And so I think part of it is just connecting people to new sources of information and making them feel empowered to make choices that don't have to do with like the right or the wrong way to be. For a long time I thought you have to be driven by negativity, like by fear and anxiety. And it's been really amazing to see people who are like, no, like there's a lot of great stuff going on and we're gonna focus on that and grow that. And that to me has been like one of the best byproducts of doing Loam.
Wasn't that great? Now it's your turn. If you or someone you know is doing something remarkable to help our planet, let us know about it. You could be our next eco-defender. See you soon. Welcome back to Aqua Kids.
From crab surveying and oyster reproduction, Morgan State University's Pearl does a lot for environmental and aquatic research. Well, that's all we have for today, and we'll see you next time on Aqua Kids.
Travel